Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. The most serious attack yet. That's how one top government official described Boko Haram's latest military strike. After sacking another northeastern town of more than 100,000 this past week, the Islamic militants on Sunday overran Nigerian troops in the city of Maiduguri. The battle for the city took place as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry visited President Goodluck Jonathan in Lagos. Kerry said the U.S. is already sharing intelligence with Nigeria in the fight against Boko Haram and stood ready to do more, assuming the upcoming national elections on February 14th proceed in a nonviolent, democratic fashion. That U.S. support might be too late, according to Maiduguri Bishop Oliver Dome. He told Fides News Service that Boko Haram could conquer the entire northeast before the end of the election, unless foreign troops intervene. And riots broke out across Egypt on the 4th anniversary of the Arab Spring uprising. Over 20 people were killed and 500 arrested in the clashes as those affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood took to the streets against the government. In Cairo, 3 Coptic Christians were among those killed, including a 10-year-old boy. The Islamist protesters had fired shots into a church. And the battle over U.S. immigration policy appears headed for the courts. Speaker of the House John Boehner told Republicans during a closed-door meeting on Tuesday that leadership is finalizing a lawsuit against President Barack Obama and his executive actions on the issue. Back in November, the president extended work permits and halted deportation action to some 4 million people here illegally. Speaker Boehner confirmed the legal action on Wednesday in an interview with Fox News. There he said the lawsuit isn't so much about immigration, but about the president violating the Constitution, violating his oath of office, and frankly, not upholding the rule of law. And the Republican takeover of the U.S. Senate is not the only new majority on Capitol Hill. In the U.S. House, for the first time ever, there are more Catholic Republicans than Democrats. The official tally, according to Pew Research, is 69 to 68. Though a nominal majority, it is a noteworthy trend, given the long and storied history of Catholics and the Democratic Party. The shift has taken place in just 5 short years. In 2010, Catholic Democrats outnumbered their GOP counterparts nearly 3-1. The Catholic electorate also has been trending Republican, having flipped from a Democrat majority in 2008 to a Republican one in the most recent polling. And a group of 7 U.S. scholars have banded together in protest of the imprisonment and flogging of a political activist in Saudi Arabia. The group includes Princeton professor Robert George and former U.S. ambassador to the Holy See, Marianne Glendon. The scholars have informed the Saudi embassy that each is ready to stand in and take 100 lashes in place of Raif Badawi. The blogger and father of 3 was sentenced to 10 years in prison and 1,000 lashes for insulting Islam. He had made remarks critical of the Saudi government on his blog, which has since been shut down. Earlier this month, Badawi, seen here, received his first set of 50 weekly lashes. Doctors have twice since halted the public flogging, saying his wounds needed time to heal. It's still unknown if President Obama discussed Badawi with the new Saudi king during his brief visit to Riyadh on Tuesday. Obama avoided answering CNN's Fareed Zakaria's query about whether Badawi would be discussed. The president said talks with such allies often need to be balanced between concerns such as regional stability and terrorism and those of human rights. Moreover, he said the purpose of the stop was to pay his respects to King Salman. The Obama administration is seeking help from an unlikely source in its push for climate change policy. They're turning to the Vatican. In a bid to bolster the president's moral case for combating climate change, a delegation from the Environmental Protection Agency will meet Vatican officials on Friday. Pope Francis and the Vatican have been outspoken on this issue in recent weeks. The Holy Father said recently that he's convinced that global warming is mostly man-made, and the Pope's first encyclical on the environment is due to be released in June, ahead of a climate change meeting in Paris. And Fidel Castro has ended his silence over Cuba's decision to restore diplomatic ties with the United States. In a letter published in the official Communist Party paper, the 88-year-old dictator emeritus said he doesn't trust the Americans, but backs negotiated solutions to any conflict. Also this week, Castro's brother, Cuban President Raul Castro, floated new conditions for the restoration of U.S.-Cuban ties. He's asking the U.S. to return the Guantanamo Bay naval base and to pay his people reparations for the ongoing embargo. We'll keep you posted on this story. Meanwhile, violations of religious freedom in Cuba are on the rise. This according to the advocacy group Christian Solidarity Worldwide. In just one example cited in their report for 2014, members of the Ladies in White dissident group have been repeatedly dragged away from Sunday Mass by state security agents. Many were beaten, and most were arbitrarily detained until after the conclusion of the Mass. The report also alleges severe harassment and sporadic reports of violent beatings of Protestant pastors and lay leaders in different parts of the country. And the Church of England has installed its first female bishop. Libby Lane was named the 8th Bishop of Stockport on Monday after a ceremony in York Minster. After a long and divisive dispute over whether women should serve as bishops, the Church of England last year voted in favor of it. The consecration service was interrupted for a moment by the protest of the Reverend Paul Williamson. He stepped forward and objected when the congregation was asked if it was their will that Lane be ordained. Williamson said no and asked to speak, arguing that there was no precedent in the Bible for women bishops. The Archbishop of York, John Shentamu, answered with a prepared statement and then asked again if the church approved. This time the response was a loud yes, drowning out any further protest. And the Spanish daily Hoy is reporting that Pope Francis met privately with a transsexual and his fiancée. Apparently, the transsexual man had written to complain about the shabby treatment he received by the local church in Spain. Born a woman, Diego Neria, said that Pope Francis had called him twice in December to arrange the meeting. It took place this past Saturday at the papal residence. The Pope also invited Diego's fiancée. No other details of the meeting have emerged, and the Vatican press office will neither confirm nor deny the event. Meanwhile, it appears gay and lesbian couples might get a hearing in the upcoming Synod on the Family. Italian Cardinal Lorenzo Baldisseri, the General Secretary for the Synod, told a family conference this past week that the working document being prepared for the upcoming Synod would address the most sensitive issues of homosexuality, cohabitating outside of marriage, and communion for divorced and remarried Catholics. He also defended the right of Cardinal Walter Casper to assert that the divorced and remarried should be permitted to receive communion. He argued that the faithful should not be shocked by those at the Synod who offer suggestions outside of what is, quote, common doctrine, since this does not imply going against it. Continuing, he said, it means reflecting because dogma has its own evolution. That is a development, not a change. The Synod on the Family is scheduled for October. And Oscar-nominated film American Sniper is on track to make $300 million at the box office. But not everyone is taken with the film. This week, liberal filmmaker Michael Moore ratcheted up his criticism of the movie by invoking Jesus. In a series of tweets, he suggested that the Lord would not send men into battle, nor would he shoot them in the back, like the sniper Chris Kyle, the subject of the film. I appeared on the O'Reilly Factor this week to discuss the controversy with Bill.
So, what are your thoughts about Mr. Moore bringing Jesus into this debate?
You know, Bill, Jesus has no place in this debate, okay? I mean, I think if Jesus were commenting on it, I hardly think he would be defaming a good soldier who went out to defend his country and defend innocent people in a foreign land at the risk of his own life. I don't think he'd be doing that. Furthermore, I think once Mr. Moore brings in Jesus, he tries to make the point here. He's trying to wage an old battle. Michael Moore's still interested in litigating the Iraq War. That's not what this is about. This film is about what everyday soldiers bring back with them, the wounds they carry with them from war. And we should all be thankful for their willingness to take these wounds, physical and otherwise, and then carry them back to the home.
And I think it was very cheap.
Using their faith.
It was very cheap to run down Chris Kyle by using Jesus, and I think Jesus is appalled at that. That's just my opinion.
Well, you wrote about him, you'd know. So what do you think? Is Moore justified in invoking Jesus to criticize the actions of this soldier, Chris Kyle? Let me know what you think on Facebook and Twitter at Raymond Arroyo. I'll post the whole O'Reilly segment there as well.